4 divisions, 4 hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL Podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Power.
Hello and welcome to episode 35 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, The Holy GrAHL. Now, as we have been all season, we are all about the American Hockey League and their yearly race to the Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup. Now, this is our big Calder Cup Finals kickoff show. And yeah, we have amazing guests for you here. A little bit later on in the show, we have Sam Manos and Will Bitten from the Springfield Thunderbirds, and from the Chicago Wolves, we have Jack Drury. All will be playing in the Stanley Cup Finals round here, and yeah, big show. So let's just get right into it. But we introduced our guests. That means we kind of need to introduce ourselves too. I mean, we're the ones talking to them. Might as well get to know us if you don't already. So, as always, we're going to make this simple. Go in alphabetical order. Andrew, kick us off.
Well, yeah, I'm always starting off with the A's. I always like that. I'm Andrew Rinaldi. I cover beat for the Grand Rapids Griffins, but also more relevantly, the Chicago Wolves. And, I mean, my first actual preseason coverage and my team's in the Calder Cup Finals, it's kind of surreal. I'm loving it. I can't wait for the game. It's going to be fantastic.
I'm Corey Swartz. I'm usually covering the Hershey Bears, but I'm a man of many hats, so I've been kind of covering the Springfield Thunderbirds all playoff long. So I've been the guy for the T-Birds here. I'm becoming a big T-Birds fan myself through all of this, honestly.
And I'm Deana Weinheimer, managing editor and AHL at-large writer in my third season at Field Pass Hockey, and I cannot wait for this round. This is going to be some amazing hockey, and I just can't wait to get into the show here.
Hey everyone, I'm Michael Liu. I cover the Abbotsford Canucks for the Field Pass Hockey, my first season. And I didn't have much to really write about and much to talk about, unfortunately, but it's great as always being on the Holy GrAHL with all these wonderful people.
And I'm Zack Power. I'm still astounded that we're at 35 episodes of all things, but I'm a writer here for Field Pass Hockey. The coverage on all parts of the AHL has been really great so far this year with the playoffs, and it's been a dandy playoffs as well.
All right, so let's just get into the show. Now, we've talked, it seems like the last few episodes every week about a new coach coming into the fold here, and this show is no different. So last time we talked about the Cleveland Monsters. This time we're going out into the Pacific Division with the Ontario Reign. Now, the Los Angeles Kings have named Marco Sturm as the new head coach. Joining him will actually be the remaining coaching staff for the Reign. They're all going to return, from the goaltending coach to the assistants. Everybody else is coming back for the 2022-23 season. Now, Sturm is joining the Reign after spending the last 4 seasons as an assistant coach with the Kings. Now, this past season, he helped the Kings earn their first playoff berth since 2017-2018 with a third-place finish in the Pacific Division. Previously, he's also served as the head coach of Germany's national team from 2015 to 2018, leading that program to a silver medal at the 2018 Olympics to go with the Deutschland Cup in 2015 and appearances in the quarterfinals at the IIHF Men's World Championship in back-to-back years, 2016 and 17. Now, he's no short on actual playing experience, as the 43-year-old has played 938 games in the NHL between San Jose, Boston, LA, Washington, Vancouver, and Florida. Also, he is a veteran of 3 Olympic teams for Germany in 98, 2002, 2010, and, of course, the 2004 World Cup of Hockey and 4 World Championships and 2 World Juniors. Guys, what do you think about this move here?
You got to feel like it's his audition for the LA head coaching gig at some point, right? I mean, assistant for that long now, they're like, all right, we'll see get you like even more in depth with the system with these players coming up who will eventually be Kings in the near future. And with all this experience he has at the international level and, being an assistant behind the bench in LA, you got to feel like that's the next step for him. But this is his audition. Ontario, had an incredible run this past season. They just ran into an Eagles team that was on a mission. And we'll see. We'll see how they can build on that success. I'm excited for him. Congratulations to Marco on this.
And Andrew said it best too. He'll be able to spend a lot of time, at least in the short term, saying, okay, yeah, well, I know a lot of the good players down in the Ontario system that can be brought up to LA when one day they need that head coach in 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And he knows what players are in the system, what are ready, what they're capable of. So when he does get promoted, he's already ready to go.
Yeah, and you're hard pressed to find a person with more of a resume in both playing pro hockey and just being around it, honestly, over all these years. So like you guys said, I think it's first step towards many good things for him, and it's nice to see a great name like his start coaching here in the AHL level for sure.
All right, now of course we are gearing up for the Calder Cup Finals, but some teams are already looking ahead to next season. I honestly can't believe we're talking about new contracts. How about you guys?
All but 2 teams are looking towards next season. So I'm not surprised to see some of these. I think kind of the how many we've seen kind of come out the last couple of days is, I don't want to say it's been a lot, but teams know who, like, they're building up what they're looking for next year. They know who they want to bring back, and it's all set in motion. Got to get ahead of the game.
Yeah, bring it on. I'm ready for contracts to start flying around here a little bit. We're days, weeks removed from, when the NHL's free agency period starts, and, you really see AHL rosters shaped around that and during that time. And, for those of us whose teams have been, done playing here for a little while, it feels nice to have some news and some information coming around here. It's taken some time, and it'll be great to see some more players come under contract here as the weeks progress.
So we're actually going to go ahead and go through some of these signings here. Apologies if we've missed anybody, but if you want the full list, it's going to be updated all off season long on fieldpasshockey.com. If you go up to the top menu, hover over AHL, there is a transactions page that, again, our lovely AHL editors, Andrew Rinaldi and Deanna McFerrin, will be keeping up to date on all off-season long. So, guys, let's get right into it.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with one that the Monsters fans are going to be looking at, and the Blue Jackets signed Liam Foudy to a 2-year contract. The first year is a 2-way deal, so he might be coming back and forth between Cleveland and Columbus, but year number 2 of that is just strictly 1-way, so Liam will be a mainstay for the Blue Jackets, hopefully, in that contract year. And then the Griffins over on the other end they brought back a number of veterans, and one, I guess we'll call him a rookie. We'll start off with Captain Brian Lashoff coming back on a 1-year deal, and you got vets Tyler Spezia and Dominic Shine coming back on 2-year contracts. And these were 2 guys who were huge for the Griffins going in down the stretch, and the guys that had career years that they'll be leaning on. But a real intriguing one is left wing Kirill Tatayev getting a 1-year deal to kind of show what was, I want to say, missing last year, because this kid impressed in camp and in those few games he showed up in, but then he had a really devastating shoulder injury that kept him out of all season other than 9 games. So again, Griffins kind of have their mind of where they want to go next year, and they're already building.
For sure. And looking up a little more northward, Laval, they signed Otto Leskinen, the defenseman, to a 1-year, 2-way NHL, AHL contract earlier this week. A big presence to the Laval defense is what they've been much looking for.
Yeah, and shifting over to the Atlantic here a little bit, talk about multitasking here. The St. Louis Blues signed defenseman Cal Rosen to a 2-year, 2-way contract extension. This coming after he was up in St. Louis for their playoff run and rejoined the Thunderbirds here for the postseason when the Blues were eliminated here. And shifting out west a little bit, the Texas Stars signed right wing Nicholas Camano to a 1-year, 2-way contract, as well as defenseman Alex Petrovic to 1-year, 2-way contract.
Staying out in the Western Conference, but heading out to the Pacific. The Ontario Reign already restocking here with the LA Kings signing MVP TJ Tynan to another 2-year contract. And then the LA Kings also signing defenseman Jacob Moverare to a 2-year extension.
And looking back at the North Division, Syracuse bolstering up once again. Another defenseman in the wings there, Sean Day, to a 1-year, 2-way contract. It's, again, another great aspect and a great addition to a Syracuse team who's going to look to rebound after a mediocre season.
I know this is an AHL podcast, guys. We were talking about some of these signings, but we also have to talk about the NHL sometimes, especially when the worlds combine, and they are combining here with the Calder Cup Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals happening at the exact same time. And of course, with the NHL, they bring up a lot of players that developed in the American Hockey League. And some of these players for the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning are making huge contributions for their teams. I mean, come on. 75% of the players for the Avalanche developed in the American Hockey League. And then with the Tampa Bay Lightning, 81.8% of that squad played in the American Hockey League. And we're not just talking about any players. We're talking about players like JT Compher, Pavel Francouz, Darcy Kemper, Mikko Rantanen, Devon Taves, Eric Johnson for the Avs, and then for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Eric Chernak, Anthony Cirelli, Alex Killorn, Ryan McDonough, Braden Point, Andre Vasilevsky, Andre Palat, Alex Killorn, the last two of those having won the Calder Cup. And then you also have Calder Cup winners behind the bench in Jared Bednar and John Cooper. Former AHL Rookie of the Year, again, Mikko Rantanen. Pat Maroon had over 350 games played. Devon Taves was a 2017 AHL All-Star. Now you just have to wonder what players that have played this year or are playing in this Calder Cup Finals are going to join these ranks someday.
I have a feeling that there's one coach on one of these benches that just may have a shoe-in for a Stanley Cup. But, I also got to think about it too. For years, I always thought that Syracuse was such a great team. And it's you don't really realize how good they are until you see these players blossom into the NHL, and now they're winning, or the possibility of winning, back-to-back or 3 straight Stanley Cups. And so when you got to look at that, even Colorado, we talked so much this year about how good Colorado was, but years previous, they were pretty good too. They held their own. And so it's good to kind of be able to see a lot of those prospects be able to blossom in the NHL, in the AHL, and now into the NHL.
Just a few more stats to kind of tie this all together. In this past season, 88.2% of all the NHL players have been an NHL alumni. 142 different AHL players made their NHL debut this past season. And then there was a total of 423 players that played in both the AHL and NHL this season. Shout out specifically to Riley Nash, who we kind of followed a bit on this podcast, playing both in Syracuse and up in Tampa Bay this season here. So, all right, guys, I think it's just time we go ahead and move right into it. It's why everyone's here. Calder Cup final talks. Second seed out of the Atlantic, Springfield Thunderbirds. First seed out of the Central Division, Chicago Wolves. Are you ready?
I was born ready.
Andrew, I must say, your performance in that watch-along episode that we did this past week was amazing.
Good. I'm glad that everyone else enjoyed it. I was for 48 minutes of it not having a good time, but it ended up working out for the best, and that's what counts, right?
Those are the greatest 2 periods I've ever watched in hockey with someone. I've never seen somebody so devoted to a game of hockey in my life. So props.
And this is just on the beat. Wait till you see me in Little Caesars Arena when the Red Wings are playing meaningful games again. So you might be waiting a minute, but hey.
I'm going to make the drive up from Columbus to join you in one of those games because I need to see this live in person. Okay, so let's just talk real quick about how these teams got here. Now, interestingly enough, both of these teams got a bye out of that first play-in round just because they were such high seeds. They did not have to play in that play-in round. In round 2, Springfield took a 3-game sweep over the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Penguins in the Atlantic Division semifinals. The Chicago Wolves also sweeping their rival Rockford Ice Hogs in the Central. Moving into the Atlantic Division Finals, Springfield sweeping again, this time the Charlotte Checkers. Meanwhile, in a move that we will never forget, a move that our very own Michael Liu called here, Chicago winning 3-1 over the Milwaukee Admirals. And then, of course, this last round, Eastern Conference Finals, Springfield taking it down to Game 7 against the Laval Rocket, but emerging victorious with a shutout performance by Charlie Lindgren, and then an amazing 4-game night as well from Will Bitten earlier on in the series against his former team. And then the Chicago Wolves 4-2 over Stockton. So just kind of going back on those 2 series a little bit, let's just kind of talk about those. First, guys, what are your thoughts on that Eastern Conference Finals, Springfield and Laval?
It was an outstanding series. I mean, you had 2 very even teams, statistically and on paper going at it there in this series. And it really represented for Springfield, I think, their first major hurdle that they had to get through. Not that they, necessarily breezed through there by any stretch, but they had won, dating back to the regular season, 10 games in a row and won Game 1 of that series, and then faced a lot of adversity, to lose a game at home in Game 2, bounce back and win 2 games on enemy ice there in Laval, where you had to play 3 straight in a 2-3-2. It was an outstanding performance for them, I thought, to, really hop in and, especially from Game 6 to Game 7, as you'll hear a little later on, I think, they needed a rebound game, and they gave all that and then some in Game 7.
It was, I think you got to feel for Charlie Lindgren and Will Bitten, the emotions of kind of getting let go by that Montreal organization to turn around and have the performances that they had was just simply incredible. But yeah, Corey touched on it. Really, just having 2 teams just super, super close. I mean, alternating wins the whole series. No one could really gain momentum for more than 60 minutes. It was just real back and forth. I mean, it's like a ping pong match, And ultimately, it was Springfield that ended up kind of smashing that last shot in Game 7, but it could have. I mean, it just really had this feeling that it could have gone either way. I mean, a couple bounces going the other way, and we're talking about how well does Laval match up against Chicago, So, but at the end of the day, it was Springfield. They persevered. They got the big win in Game 7, and they deserve to be here.
I mean, full credit to Laval for even being in this position. I mean, halfway through this season, I think a lot of us wrote them off, not by their own fault, but with COVID and all the injuries, and basically playing an ECHL squad up in the AHL. I mean, it was not easy it wasn't easy to get here, and they played a series that they can be proud of. They gave one of the best teams in the AHL a real run for their money. I mean, Springfield didn't really face adversity, like Corey mentioned, up until this point. They really just were rolling, and they really had to bounce back after a pretty tough loss. So Yeah, I mean, having gone through that against a very, very good Rocket team, I mean, I think Springfield's really well positioned to capitalize on something like this, especially against such a juggernaut like the Chicago Wolves.
One thing I will say, though, is I have kind of been writing Springfield off, not giving Springfield the true dues that they deserve throughout this postseason. But they showed us whenever they face adversity how they can come back, how that team does not get flustered. I mean, you have what I did not really consider an amazing duo in goal show us that, hey, both of them can perform in Joel Hofer and Charlie Lindgren. It was just a fun series to watch, that energy coming out of that crowd in Game 7. That Thunderbirds faithful, they did a good job there.
And the one thing I will say about Springfield, too, is that although they did sweep their way into the conference finals, as we've seen here so far, some of those games were, a little more challenging than what it seems. On paper, it looks like, they swept through it and it was really easy. There's a couple of games in there that were very challenging. One of the games of the Wilkes-Barre series was that 7-6 barn burner that the Thunderbirds came back from an early 4-1 deficit to win that game. And I believe, game 2 of the Charlotte series especially was a huge turnaround game where, they looked down, they looked out. They presented, what I've been calling just a huge clutch factor so far to score a goal to tie it. And then, an extremely late goal, 5 seconds left from the real deal James Neal to take that game. And, I feel like that really was a dagger to the Charlotte Checkers in a pivotal game too there for sure.
Over in the Western Conference Finals, as we saw here, I mean, this was a matchup that we'd been kind of had in our sights for months leading into it. And then once we actually got it, it was like, oh boy. And oh boy, did it live up to its billing of just two heavyweight teams, the top two teams in the league, going just absolutely pound for pound, punch for punch at one another. And like Chicago took a 3-0 lead, but it did not feel like that certainly wasn't a blowout of any kind. I mean, the game 1 went into overtime. Game 2 required a winner from Josh Levo with just seconds left on the clock. Game 3 was in just another tight defensive battle that I believe there was an empty net in there. So really, it was kind of 2-0. And Stockton, they came back with 2 dramatic overtime wins of their own. And really just like this series had everything. It had all the drama. It had, back and forth hockey, incredible goaltending, big hits, just momentum swings. Anyone came up 1-0, that lead never stood up there except for the 2 games where the Wolves got some late goals and they shut out the Heat. But there's anyone who got a lead, you just knew it was coming back, that the other team was going to make a push and come tie it up. I mean, it had everything you could want out of this. And in the end, Chicago was able to come out with it in the end.
And can I just say, this has been the series, or was the series that we were all anticipating. I think at some point throughout the regular season, it definitely crossed everyone's mind at least once that it could be Chicago versus Stockton in the finals, or even Chicago versus the Reign. But what we've seen here is almost exactly what we anticipated. I think that it was like a rock and an immovable object just colliding. And it wasn't necessarily the train wreck that we were kind of like hoping for or expecting. It was more or less just a chess match. And I think I mentioned it in the watch series, is that it's a very strategic game, and they're waiting for someone to mess up. And that's when you start to see the goals. The goals, they weren't always that pretty. And, the fact that it was 3-0 in the final game, it really wasn't. The whole game was 0-0 until the last, 10 minutes? Then Chicago scored, and then they had that last one with about 2 minutes in the empty net. to me, that counts as a 2-0 game max. And that's the way this series kind of felt to me is, the score was a lot different than what the play said on the ice.
I feel like Andrew needed an AD present at every single game, honestly. I mean, what can you really say? The Western Conference always looked out in the West, and I mean, it always looked like these two teams would face off, and like Zach said, it's what we expected. But I think that the Wolves can take a lot out of this series. I mean, Stockton, by no means are they a walkover, like the series demonstrated, and they gave the Wolves everything they could handle. And for the Wolves to be able to overcome that, even though we have the statistics, we know that on paper maybe they're the better team. For them to be able to go out and win the series in not an easy fashion, I mean, that has to be a real confidence booster heading into the Calder Cup Finals.
And there were a lot of times in that series, I think, which is going to end up helping Chicago, in which they were, early in this postseason, you're watching them just run over Rockford to dictate the pace of play against Milwaukee, to just absolutely have their way with them. And against Stockton, it was really the only examples this season of this team really being pushed back on their heels and being challenged on the forecheck. And then there were other times, like when they would just not stop taking penalties, that this team really puts itself into a hole and, playing with fire and all that. But the penalty killing stepped up huge in that series. I mean, they had 27 opportunities on the penalty kill and gave up 1 goal. 1 goal was in overtime. That was kind of a backbreaker, but hey, it happens. But 1 goal. And I think to be able to shut down Stockton's dynamic duo of Matthew Phillips and Jacob Pelletier in the fashion that they did, those guys had 1 point each over these 6 games. I mean, when you're that paper thin, your big guns are going to have to step up and produce. And I think that's kind of what ultimately bit Stockton there. They couldn't take advantage of some of those opportunities with the man advantage. And well, that's kind of why they're watching this series at home.
I think it's, a credit to the Carolina organization that, Chicago is at this point in a lot of ways. I mean, we saw when they were in Charlotte before they switched affiliates, and, you always kind of wonder if the success is going to instantly translate over. And, Chicago is a top tier AHL city at this point. And, really getting to see them combine with, what you'd probably consider the gold standard almost of, NHL to AHL teams just in terms of their strength has been, very great to watch this season. And it's, to me, it's no surprise that they're at this point in a lot of ways.
Well, yes. To your credit, Carolina went out this offseason and signed some incredible vets like Josh Levo with over 200 games of experience, with Andrew Poturalski reuniting him with this organization, with a guy like Stefan Nason, who also has experience up in the NHL. And you mix those guys in with your rookies, with your Jack Drurys, your Jamison Reese, your Vasily Ponomarev, and you get those guys to learn from them who know what it takes to win at both levels. Yeah, it's absolutely a credit to this organization, how they draft, how they develop, and just, I mean, they're stocked up in every position with that perfect mix of veteran experience and, that youthful injection, those guys who are going to grow up and learn how to do it the right way. And that's what's going to help them at the next level in Carolina. And yeah, I think it was a perfect match there.
All right, going ahead and looking forward to the keys for victory. Now, I'm having a hard time really trying to decide because there's so many variables here, but honestly, Springfield played such a crash, bang 'em up style this postseason. And if that's not matching up well against Chicago, I can't think of any team that could do it better right now. Honestly, this series is going to come down to the mental and the physical fatigue and which team can handle it the best. we're going to bring it up again later, but 7 games in 10 days, that's going to wear guys down fast. So which team can impose their will the most without wearing themselves out? That's going to be the deciding factor here. We've already seen that both teams can use both goalies. That's important. I don't think, Stockton basically used one goalie and Alex Lyon. Laval used basically Caden Primo. If either of those other two teams came in instead of one of these two, this series, I think, would be a little bit more one-sided. But this is going to be close with both teams having both goalies at their disposal here.
Especially considering if this series goes the distance, you're going to be playing 7 games in 10 days. I feel like if Stockton came through, Dustin Wolf would be pretty tired by the time Game 6 came around. But I think with both teams being able to rotate their netminders, you're never gonna. You might not see. It might just be Lyon versus Lindgren, Hofer versus Kochekov, and we just rotate the goalies around every game depending on who's ready. It's a really interesting dynamic, but both teams are going to be dealing with it, so it'll be interesting to see how they each approach it.
And it is interesting, as you alluded to there. Springfield throughout these playoffs, almost any time they've had a back-to-back, have had no problems throwing, Lindgren one night and Hofer the next. And, obviously went a good chunk of time without Lindgren there in the Charlotte series and had to rely on Hofer. And so it's going to be a very interesting battle. And as you alluded to earlier, Andrew, with Chicago, they've got a very strong penalty kill. And Springfield's coming off of, essentially being blanked in the conference final there on the power play up until Game 7, where they scored 2 goals. That's where I'm interested to see how the two teams are going to match up here. Is Springfield's power play had been so incredibly strong. It had been their bread and butter for so long. And then all of a sudden just kind of hit the wall against a really strong Laval penalty kill group and then broke through. So I'm curious to see what that confidence of getting a clutch goal is going to do for them in this upcoming series as well.
And for me, when I look at Chicago, I got to think that they have to be able to prove something at home. I mean, their home record has been 7-0-0, and that's got to kind of continue into these playoffs. And their power play record at home, 28%. Their penalty killing, 91% at home. That's got to be their kind of bread and butter. They got to use that advantage and be able to kind of pull away with something. And Springfield, for them, it's just remember where you came from too, right? I don't think that everybody kind of had Springfield to kind of go forward. I know even at some points throughout the season, they've had to face some real adversities, like you kind of mentioned earlier. So that's got to be like their biggest sticking point is we got to keep going because we know that we have a great competitor coming up like Laval, and they showed that they have the fruits to be able to beat a top tier team.
And I think at this point, we've talked a lot about goaltending fatigue that settles in, but also the skaters. I mean, they've reached the Calder Cup Finals. They've gone through a grueling season. They've gone through a grueling playoff run. At this point, it's up to who can push through the fatigue, who wants the cup win more. I mean, it's been restated over and over again, but 7 games in 10 days leaves very little room for recovery. Most professional sports don't do that. It's all about being able to manage yourself, manage the recovery phase after a game, and to play the way Springfield plays, that's exhausting. And I'm very interested to see if they can keep that style up because that makes them excel. Then I'm sure they don't want to deviate from it, but I just want to see if they'll be able to maintain that fast, hard checking, hard nosed style. And as for Chicago, I mean, try not to get broken down by it. They've had to go through a very tough Heat team, and now they're up against a team that isn't afraid to play physical, isn't afraid to play that hard-nosed, old school style of hockey almost. So, yeah, really for me, I want to see how these teams can push through this final stretch and hopefully lift their Holy GrAHL.
I think we kind of touched on it earlier for Chicago. It's not you can't keep taking penalties. If you give this Springfield team 27 looks on the power play, again, it's not going to end well. And there's been just a number of miscues where they kind of shot themselves in the foot against Stockton. I don't know. I'm not even pointing out some of the goals that Alex Lyon and Pyotr Kochetkov gave up because they were trying to play the puck and the puck kind of slipped off their stick and his Stockton forechecker got into it, or a puck gets shot in on a 1-on-3 and it bounces off your blocker and goes over your head and into the net. Like, that's the kind of stuff they got away with it. This team was able to respond and they got away with it, but they got to be able to tighten that stuff up because there's not going to be a lot of room for error. You were able to hold up Matthew Phillips and Jacob Peltier to 1 point each in the last round, and it was tremendous, and they did great, and it was wonderful. Are you really going to roll the dice and expect that maybe you'll do that again to Sam Anas, Will Bitten, James Neal? I don't think that's a consistent recipe for success. So if they can just kind of, and Springfield's going to be coming and they're going to bash them on the forecheck, and I think they're going to look at a lot of the tape of what Stockton was able to do effectively to get those defensemen not quite as crisp on those breakout passes, and find a way to get behind the defense. And Springfield's just got to be opportunistic. When Chicago gives you an inch, you got to take a mile because you're not going to be given a lot of inches. And so whenever the green light's there, you just got to send it. Whenever it's a yellow light, you got to send it. And if no one's looking on a red light, maybe send it.
What I want to know is, you're talking about Chicago giving inches, Springfield taking miles. We saw in that Eastern Conference Finals, Springfield really struggled on the man advantage until Game 7. Now, do we think the power play is back? Or is that going to be an issue that more than likely, we're recording this on Saturday. This is going to air Sunday morning. Is that something that they're going to cover in morning skate again, do you think? Corey, you've been watching this series really closely.
I really think that Springfield's due to get back to their ways in the power play. Andrew said, a lot about taking advantage of your opportunities when you get them. And, I was sitting here kind of, rubbing my hands and licking my lips here a little bit, because that's exactly what Springfield's done all playoff long here. Is they take advantage of opportunities when they're given them. You take a look at Game 7. They scored 2 times on 3 opportunities in the power play. That's not a lot. That's, really seizing the moment. The goal that Matthew Peca scored to open Game 7 came just, less than 10 seconds into that power play. And, when Springfield gets an opportunity, to sum them up, I go back to that Game 2 against Charlotte we talked about earlier with them tying that game late and then scoring with just 5 seconds left with James Neal on a power play. That's taking advantage of your opportunities right there. And, I think that they've shown a strong ability, especially, their clutch third period performances over these playoffs, aside from really Game 6 of the Laval series where the Rocket really took that and flipped the script on Springfield. Third period's been their period. They've outscored their opponents by a wide margin there too. And so, I think that that's going to be, a huge factor if they can keep that up, keep playing strong defensive hockey as they have. And, like I said, Chicago's their biggest test for that this season. Honestly, it doesn't get any bigger than this. And, if they can play that style of hockey and play, the way they want these games to play out, they stand a great chance in my book.
Okay, now the time, we're going to lay it all out on the line here. It's time for our predictions. 7 games, 10 days. We're going to kind of keep hitting this nail on the head, but that is the big difference maker, I think, here. Who's going to take it all? Who's going to have the next year with the Calder Cup?
I'm going to say Chicago in 5. It's not going to be 5 like the normal, it's a 5-game series. This is cakewalk. No, it's going to be a 5-game series akin to something like Stockton. But the way I see it is these are 2 very good teams. And after a long playoff run, in a tight and grueling schedule, I think that 5 games is very reasonable for the series to be decided in.
I'd be going opposite on you here. I had Springfield in 6. And my reasoning for that is that I think that Springfield, they're going to take their lumps in this series. It wouldn't be surprising even to be able to say for it to go 7, really. And not having home ice is going to play into a factor. It's be the first time Springfield hasn't had home ice in these playoffs. So I think they're really going to, take their lumps in the first couple of games. But I think they're going to find a way to pull out one of those couple of wins there and then take it home where they have, I believe, if I remember the schedule right, it's going to be 3 straight games in Springfield then before it heads back to Chicago. And they're, with their crowd, they're going to take advantage of that atmosphere there. And I think it's really going to benefit them. And, they're probably going to have to pull out a couple of overtime wins. I mean, you saw in the Laval series, they had to pull out a, number of wins in overtime there as well. And, it's going to be close. I think all 6 games will be very close. But I'm really not had a reason to doubt Springfield at all. And their bounce back ability in my book has been huge, as well as, there's just been so many clutch factors there that I have a hard time not wanting to take them, honestly.
So, Andrew, do you want to leave before I predict, or are you good to stay?
I'll go last because I'm still just like,
because I'm kind of
I'm working the jinxes in my head, and I'm figuring out how I want to do this.
Because I kind of got the Chicago fever, and I got to say that 6 games is going to be it, because it's like we said, I do believe that there's some capitalization on Springfield's end to be able to come away with a couple of games at least, and because I have a feeling that Chicago's going to go into this and it's going to be the same sort of antics, that there's going to be a lot of power plays given towards Springfield, and Springfield's going to capitalize. And I think that that's going to be the snake that bites them in the early going. But then I believe that Chicago's going to come back, because I say this because when you look at the series, it's divided into clumps, really, right? You have a couple games in Chicago, a couple games in Springfield, a couple back. I think that Chicago has those extra players to be able to rely on a lot more and play 4 lines, as opposed to Springfield not giving, like, Springfield has a really great team, mind you, but Chicago has just so many good faces on them right now that they can rotate and play 4 lines throughout the series, which is going to be huge. And I think that that's why they take it in 6.
I think that 3-game stretch at the Thunderdome in Springfield is going to be such a relief for the Thunderbirds, and is going to energize them so much to have that long stretch at home, see their family, home cooking, all that good stuff. Guys, I'm taking Springfield in 7.
I think that middle stretch there is going to be it's going to be something different that the Wolves haven't seen. I don't think this postseason. I mean, going to Rockford, going to Milwaukee is one thing. Going to Stockton, that building had about 500 people in it, and is not going to be nearly as raucous as Springfield. But there is, I think, something that wasn't mentioned enough as we were talking about that Western Conference. And that's going to be the quality of ice in Springfield is going to be so much better than it was in Stockton. And the Wolves are going to actually be able to hold the puck on their stick and make a play with it. And I think that's going to be I think they're going to be relieved to actually see that. And when it boils down to it, I mean, you look at, I think their goaltending is identical. You have a veteran presence and a rookie phenom in both ends that are going to be rotating, and they're going to be pushing each other to be better, because there's not going to be a room for error. It's going to be, oh, well, here you go, next guy in. And there's so much depth on both sides, and they're playing so well right now. But again, I've seen, I think the conference finals, I've seen Chicago play not great hockey and come out with wins, and they find ways to get wins. The penalty kill has been just spectacular lately, so that even if they are in trouble, oh, here's Max Lajoie blocking 5 shots on a single power play, and they have the personnel to go one way or the other. Yeah, I'm stalling. I am I gotta take the Wolves. I think that they're a team of destiny right now, and if I jinx them, then I jinx them. But I'm confident in the way I've seen this team play, and that I believe that at the end of 6 games, they will be hoisting the Holy Grail.
A team of destiny. I love it. Well, predictions are in. We'll see. All right, guys. Now I would like to introduce our first guests here on the Holy Grail podcast for our Calder Cup Finals kickoff show. Our first guests are 2 forwards from your Eastern Conference champion, Springfield Thunderbirds. First, we have, well, in alphabetical order, Sam Manos and Will Bitten. Now, in his first season with Springfield, Sam has posted 14 points in this postseason with 64 back in the regular season, catapulting his team into the Calder Cup Finals. The winner of the Fred T. Hunt Memorial Award, he's proven time and again to be a leader and strong role model for his squad. The 29-year-old from Potomac, Maryland is in his 6th AHL season. Now, joining him after 3.5 seasons with the Iowa Wild, Will Bitten joined Springfield earlier on this season. And of course, he became an instant producer, but really hit his stride in the playoffs. So far, he's combined for 7 goals and 10 assists for 17 points and is a plus 13 so far in this postseason. The 23-year-old from Ottawa, Ontario, is in his 4th AHL season. From the Springfield Thunderbirds, we have Will Bitten and Sam Manos. Will and Sam, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So first, let's talk about the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, it went down to Game 7 against Laval in a super tight series. So can you just walk us through what it was like to face the Rocket for 7 games straight? And then your takeaways, especially on Caden Primo, that had quite a strong series himself.
Yeah, it was a hard fought series. You know, I think especially with their style and their structure, they were very committed to it. At times, it was frustrating for us and tough to play against. And going there for 3 games those were 3 of the most fun games I've played in my career. Just the atmosphere and everything was just so awesome to be a part of. And then really hats off to Primo. He was outstanding. I was very complimentary to him in the handshake line. He's got a bright future ahead of him, and he put on a show in the entire series.
And I mean, with the way that the AHL handles scheduling, you don't often get to see Laval, and you played with so much emotion. Was that just because of the playoffs, or was it more just an organic style of play, seeing him for the first time?
Yeah, I think, like you said, we've played them twice during the season, so we didn't really know each other's style of play. And then obviously with the COVID happening, we had a lot of guys out or in St. Louis. So the first couple games we were really testing each other out, but it was a really great series. But like you said, I think Primo had a really good series. It was awesome, especially playing Laval. That place was rocking. It's really a mini NHL there. It's really great for the AHL as well. And you know, it was one of probably my favorite series I've had in the AHL in my career so far.
Take me inside the mentality of the locker room, because you guys obviously bounced back incredibly in the between Game 6 and 7. Kind of, you know, we've seen instances of it all season long. What's the mentality like for you guys?
We didn't really change a whole lot, honestly. We kind of knew that Game 6 we kind of laid an egg. We didn't play our best. We didn't have our legs. It just seemed like we didn't have our normal jump and everything. So, but that was kind of the story of the series in a nutshell. Every game was back and forth, and I think it was just, I don't think a team won 2 in a row the entire series. So we knew that, yeah, they won Game 6 in our rink, but we went there and won 2 in their rink. So we just knew that we had to come and give it our all in one game, and luckily it went our way.
Yeah, the big thing that really stuck out to me in that series was kind of just how hard it was to ride the wave of momentum from game to game. I mean, you guys traded wins with Laval back and forth all the way from Game 1 until the end of the series there in Game 7. How do you think that reflects not just on your squad to bounce back, but on, I mean, the Rocket? And, you know, you guys never just really given each other an inch there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing for us, we knew we had home ice advantage, right? And we worked hard all year to get that. And, once they beat us that last game, Laval there, we wanted to come back at home and finish in front of our fans. But for them to win game 6, that was a great game by them. But game 7, we came out flying, and we knew from the start that it was going to be a great game. And obviously it worked out for us.
So, Will, a question for you. I mean, both you and Charlie Lindgren had previous connections to the Rocket. I mean, he was a goalie in Montreal system for 6 years. You were a draft pick in the 2016 draft by Montreal, but traded before you could really suit up for them. Now, you had mentioned that you were really excited to show them who you are and what they could have had. How did it feel for you and Charlie to turn in such a great performance against them?
Yeah, obviously that series meant a lot to us. We also had Matthew Peca, that was in the Habs organization as well. And, 3 of us going to war with our team, we really wanted to win that one. But for me, like I said, just drafted there, had a lot of great memories over there and been there for a couple of years. And, playing out in the West, I've never played against Laval, or I don't get to play any East teams, right? So it was basically a home game. I had over 40 people in every game in Laval. It was really exciting for me, and just getting to beat them in the playoff series meant a lot. And I'm sure Charlie and Pex are really excited as well to move on and play in the finals.
Yeah, so with St. Louis kind of moving so many players throughout the regular season and especially throughout the playoffs where I know you lost Lindgren briefly, how does that kind of affect your style of play and just kind of getting that chemistry up?
I don't think it's really affected us too much. I think we've just had this mentality of next man up all year, and whether that's been a defenseman, a goalie, power play, penalty kill, no matter who's been up or who's been hurt here, it doesn't seem like too much has changed on our end. And I think that's just a testament to the group we have in the room and the staff and all they've done for us and just supporting us and making sure we're ready on a daily and nightly basis. And it's been great how many guys have been called up and given a chance and everything. And it's just, I think it's even helped us even more, and that's why we really have such great depth in this team.
What does it mean for you guys to bring the Calder Cup Finals back to a very historically important city in the AHL like Springfield is? Because it's obviously been a long time. I think when you guys won Game 7, it was said that it was 6 years to the day that the Thunderbirds were actually introduced to the league. And then here you are 6 years later, taking the city back to the Calder Cup Finals for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, you can really see with all the fans showing up, the amount of support we've been having, and the streets are packed after games. It's really been fun, and like you said, it's been a while since they won a Calder Cup, and bringing it back to Springfield would be huge for the city, huge for us. And I really believe in the team we have and the depth we have that we can get it done here against Chicago.
And Sam, I want to put you in the spotlight. You had such an amazing season, capped off with the Fred T. Hunt Award, and that carried off into the playoffs where you have 14 points in 13 games. Actually, you and Will have been tied for third in assists in the postseason. What is it about this team and your line mates that making you guys so productive?
I really think it's our depth. I mean, you look at our lineup, and there's not really a first, second, third line. Like, it's just any night or any series, there can be a line that steals the show. I think that series against Laval, if it wasn't for Bitsy's line with him and Dakota Joshua and Mackenzie McEachran, without them playing the way they did, honestly, I really don't think we win that series. They carried that series, and it could be their line in the finals. It could be another line. I think it's just it's so hard for the other team to focus on one player or one line or one power play unit, even when we just are so deep, and there's skill and guys that are willing to compete and sacrifice for each other up and down the lineup.
And on the other side of the ice here coming up in the finals, you have a team that's just been a wagon all season in Chicago. And no beat bias there, I promise. But number 1 seed in the league, and they just took out a heavy Stockton team in 6. I kind of want to know what's the preparation been like heading into this series, and do you guys really make a whole lot of changes depending on who you play, or do you just kind of stick to your game that's been working for you all season?
Me and Sammy know Chicago pretty well. I mean, it's no secret to us. My first playoff experience, they beat us, so me and Sammy have a little revenge to do. But no, we know Chicago's a really good team. It's going to be a really great series, but for us, we leave to Chicago today. I think we're going to go over some video and try to see what they do, or their style of play. But obviously, we're here for a reason as well, and we want to show people that we're here to win, and we want to take a couple games to them in Chicago and bring it back here for 3 home games.
If this series goes 7, it's 7 games in 10 days for the championship. How are you guys, both as individuals and as a team, going to approach this absolute mad dash to the finish line here?
I think it's just about sticking the course. Obviously, it's going to be tough on the body, but I think maybe something that might become a factor is, we had to bye the first round, and then we swept the first 2 rounds after that. So I think, I'm not sure how Chicago did in those rounds, if they swept those games as well, but I think I just think we're really well conditioned, and part of the thing about that is that we really play 4 lines, and we spread out the ice time, and guys are not eating too many heavy minutes per game depending on situation. So I think we're very confident in whoever's out there, and I think that's going to help us.
All right, this is another one from my end of the woods over here in the Central Division. You guys kind of alluded to it, but you were teammates in Iowa for a couple of years there, and on the beat with Chicago and Grand Rapids, I saw a lot of the Wild, and I have to say they kind of have this very Charlestown Chiefs feel to some of their games, and with guys like Cody McLeod rocking the C and a no-nonsense guy like Tim Arby behind the bench. I got to know how that locker room was and the lessons that you learned there to help you really take off here in Springfield.
Yeah, obviously, me and Sammy playing Iowa. That first playoff series is intense, but my years there, really, really enjoyed it. We had a lot of great veterans there. I know when I came in, we had Sammy, we had Cal O'Reilly, we had Matt Reed. We had a lot of guys that, took that veteran leadership role there, and, getting to play there. I think the biggest thing and their mindset from Tim was always, you have to win down here to win up there. And, if you want to win here, then, maybe you'll get that call and you can help the team in the NHL. But all that experience over there, playing the West, playing Chicago a bunch. So it's no secret to me and Sam going back to the Allstate Arena, and just really excited to, show them how good the Thunderbirds are. And we're really excited to head over there tomorrow, or today, actually.
We won't be caught off guard when that firework goes off at the end of the game.
That's always helpful, right? Someone that goes to a lot of Columbus Blue Jackets games, I get it. But we're going to go ahead and move into some rapid fire questions. Just, first thing that comes to your mind, just some fun questions here, just to get to know you guys just a little bit better. But what I want to know is, who is your favorite seatmate on the bus?
I'll go Mackenzie McEachran.
I'll go Nikita Alexandrov.
Do you guys play any music in the locker room to really pump you up? And who's the DJ and what's their go-to song?
Sammy's the DJ. He's the man.
Yeah, I play a range of stuff throughout practice days, and then game days, kind of a little mix of some rap, and then mainly some kind of house techno mixes and stuff like that. So I like.
Now, did you volunteer for that, or did they just make you do it?
I think someone asked me early in the year, and then it's just kind of stuck with it, and I enjoy it, so I like doing it.
You're not the house singer, are you?
No, definitely not.
So, how about your favorite pregame meal?
Favorite pregame meal? Probably just pasta and chicken. Obviously, everyone eats it, especially on the road. You know, you kind of you don't have a choice really, but I don't know. It's pretty good, and we always stick with that. Obviously,
At home, I'll usually make just chicken, rice, and maybe a sweet potato too. So nothing too crazy.
And do you have any kind of celebration planned if you win the Calder Cup, or are you just jinxing it by talking about it?
No plans.
Do you
I get
guys
it.
have a one specific movie quote that you always go back to really inspire you for game day?
I always like the Ricky Bobby one. If you ain't first, you're last. So we got to bring it home here to Springfield, and it's gonna be a really good series. And like I said before, really excited. I mean, it's been a while since they've been to the finals, and for me and Sam, would be awesome to bring it back home and have a great summer after the big win.
You're playing in
It was
Springfield. Any Simpsons references?
Yeah, we had the it's called the Isotopes night where they made kind of created some of us into Simpsons characters, which is pretty cool. So I think that was a big hit with the fans too, and pretty cool.
And Sam, we got to get your quote in there too.
Oh, I don't know if I have one personally, but a couple hours before Game 7, Charlie Lindgren sent in into our group text a YouTube clip of any given Sunday, the pregame speech there, and that got me pretty fired up.
So in that group text, do you have a lot of memes or GIFs going around? If so, who's kind of the ringleader of that?
Usually it's just Nealer and Wachowski together, which is pretty funny.
Somehow I'm not surprised.
No, I miss Luke on the Griffins beat. The one time we had him in for a presser, he had this giant gold chain hanging around his neck. Did he bring that with him over there in Springfield?
No, I don't think so. Have you seen it, Sammy? He wears the James Neal T-shirt a lot in the dressing room. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sam, we all wanted to thank you so much for your time today. But one parting question, if you had any message to send to your Springfield fans, when this episode comes out, it's going to be the morning of Game 1. So what message do you have for the fans going into the Calder Cup Finals?
Just thank you for the continuous support, and we look forward to hopefully celebrate with everyone in a couple weeks, and we're going to do our best for them and for the city.
All right. Well, Samuel, thank you both very much for joining us, and we appreciate it, and best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Hailing from Winnetka, Illinois, our guest was taken 42nd overall in the 2018 NHL draft by the Carolina Hurricanes. After 2 years in the USHL, he enrolled in Harvard University, torching the ECAC for 63 points in 60 games. Our guest followed up his collegiate career with a season in Växjö in the Swedish Hockey League, and with 11 points in 14 games, helped the Lakers win the league championship in 2021. He's looking to go back-to-back with the Chicago Wolves this year with 16 points in 13 games, his third in league scoring in the postseason, and is 4 wins away from the Calder Cup. With Uncle Chris and Father Ted, he's coming from a big hockey family. You know him. You love him. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Drury. Jack, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Jack, Andrew kind of mentioned it. Your father played for the Chicago Wolves for a season or two. So I got 2 questions for you to start. What's kind of the best piece of advice that your father, Ted, gave you? And did he have any recommendations for Chicago? Any restaurants, things to go to, nightclubs?
I think the biggest advice he's given me is just kind of on the mental side of the game, sticking to your process, being confident in yourself, kind of get through the ups and downs of a long professional season. So that's been the most helpful. And then I think, having lived in Winnetka the last 10, 15 years, kind of learned from all the family, the different spots to go to. And it's nice to have that background, definitely.
For sure. And one guy I want to talk about in the lineup that's kind of been on your wing almost all year is Josh Levo. Here's a guy with over 200 games of NHL experience. And after a couple stints with a couple different teams, though, he's found himself having to come back to work here in the A. A lot of guys might take that as a negative sign, but Josh has really turned that around and is playing his best hockey when it matters the most. What have you really tried to learn from a vet like him that's been around the block, not just in this league, but also up in the national?
I think, he's a great leader and a heck of a player. I think I've been really lucky to get to play with him this year. He's a really good goal scorer, moves the puck really well, and I think along with David Gust, we've had a lot of chemistry when we've gotten to play together this year. So I think, as a leader, he's big in the whole locker room, teaching the young guys kind of the right habits, how to do things the right way. And then off the ice, he's just a great guy and, a great line mate, but an even better friend.
So while you may be a rookie in the American Hockey League, it looks like you have had plenty of playoff experience in other leagues, including, in the pros, in the SHL. But what I want to know is what impact has playing for the Wolves had on you, especially in this postseason, and what makes it different? Like, what makes this experience with the Wolves unique from when you played on those other teams and in the different leagues?
I think the North American season is a lot longer than in Sweden. It's a lot more games. The Swedish playoffs is only 3 rounds. This is 4 rounds. So I think you got to go through the grind a little bit more, playing more games, taking care of yourself, a bit more physical. So I think it's kind of just, prepared me for that North American playoff style where it's a lot of games, a lot of rounds you got to get through. You get pretty beat up, but you just got to kind of learn how to come out and play your best every night. Along with that, I think, we've become incredibly close as a team this year. So to get to do it with the guys in this locker room is pretty special. And, when you go through it together for 9 months in a row, I think you're all just really pulling for each other.
You briefly touched on it a little bit, but how did winning the championship in the SHL prepare you for this year's playoff run? And what lessons have you learned during the playoffs so far that could carry on into the NHL?
That's a good question. I think last year I was on a team that had won a few championships in the previous 5 to 10 years. And we had a lot of veterans from those teams that had won before. And, I kind of learned from them after big wins in the earlier rounds, you got to stay calm and, not get too high because the ultimate goal is still kind of out there. So I think just, don't get too high after a big win or an overtime win or anything like that, because you got more to go. I think from this year, from this run, kind of like I said, just a bit more physical. You got to get to the dirty areas if you want to score, a lot less odd man rushes. I think in that Stockton series, playing against a lot of veterans in that lineup that are good at face-offs, good in the D zone, good at all the little things. And I think for teams to get far, you kind of learn those are the little things you got to get done.
This series represents a little bit of a different challenge for you guys in that you haven't had any direct experience playing the Springfield Thunderbirds so far for this series. How does that impact your preparation going forward for Game 1?
Yeah, it's a very unique situation playing a team you haven't played against all year in the finals. I think, we did a lot of video the last couple days, as much as you can, and, tried to learn some tendencies. We got a lot of respect for them. We know they got a lot of good players, but we're still confident at the same time. And I think, once the puck is dropped, it's just about winning your one-on-one battles, sticking in the structure we've developed all year and playing your hardest.
Now, kind of building off that, is there anything that you guys saw on that video or anything that your team has been focusing on a little bit more in preparation for Springfield, or in terms of your strategies, it's just kind of status quo, it's been working, why try to change it now?
Yeah, I don't know if Warzy would be happy with me if I gave too much away. So I think just keep working hard and doing what we've been doing this year.
I get it. But, just following up to that, in your opinion, what is the strongest point or the strongest part of the Chicago Wolves roster in your mind?
I think our depth is huge. Starts off with 2 incredible goalies that we can rely on. Lyon, a lot of NHL experience, just a professional. Can't really put it any other way. And Kachi, obviously, so much potential and just incredible goalies. So we know we can rely on those 2. And then we got 6 great D, a lot of great D not playing, and 12 good forwards, no matter who's in the lineup. So I think we know we can trust anyone that's on the ice and rely on them for goals and defense. So I think just keep sticking with that, keep rolling our lines, and do what we've been doing.
So if this series goes 7 games, you would have played 7 games in 10 days. Does that kind of change how you prepare for this series and how you even play in the series?
Yeah, it's a lot of games in a short time frame. I think with the travel too, it can be tough, but it's kind of what you've been preparing for all year. Just hydrate a lot. This is the point you want to be at the end of the year. There's not really any need to worry about workouts or too much practice time or anything like that. So it's just the games. Just eat healthy, drink a lot of water. But I think both teams are going through it, right? It's not just us that has to play 7 games in 10 days. So does the other team. So I think we'll focus on our first shift in game 1 and then go from there.
I want to rewind the clock back to October because on the AHL TV broadcast, you introduced yourselves to Wolves fans, and I want to say it verbatim. Jack Drury, number 15, went to Harvard, and I'm a winner. And I don't think anyone's going to doubt that last part, but I want to know, kind of expanding on that, how can you explain the details that you focus on, maybe on or off the ice, that make it?
Yeah, I think going through the experience last year and being on some good junior and college teams, just try to learn a lot of the habits of the guys I've been around as far as winning. And I think a lot of it's just your culture. It's not an individual thing. It's every single guy in the locker room. And I think Chicago has a great culture. It starts from the top with the management and the coaches, and the players have followed through. I think just the little things, early in the year, staying on after practice, working on little things, and then becoming close as a team. I think if you want to go far in the playoffs, go deep into the summer, you got to really care for each other. And I think we've developed that camaraderie, and it's hopefully going to pay off here at the end.
So looking at the Calder Cup Finals, what part of playing in the finals and what part about facing Springfield and then traveling to a city, a rink that you guys don't normally get to see, what part of all of that are you looking forward to the most?
I think just the energy in the building. Game 1 is going to be really fun. I think all the guys on both teams are going to be really excited. Going to Massachusetts, I've got some family over there. I know some guys in the team do, so that's pretty unique. Having family see us play that I've been able to watch us play all year. And it's a great test. I think as an athlete, you want to play against the best and challenge yourself against the best. And we know we're playing, one of the best teams in the league. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
What does it mean for you guys to bring, such a historically competitive and successful franchise like the Chicago Wolves back to the Calder Cup Finals this season?
It's huge. I think, the success this team has had in the past as an organization, it's pretty evident when you look at the championships they've won, division titles, trips to the finals. So I think we knew the expectation when we got here in October, and I think we're all happy that we can kind of continue the tradition of winning here and hopefully finish the job.
No. Up in the NHL right now, you have a lot of teams that have still yet to fill out their vacancy for a head coach. Coach Warsofsky is a guy who's won at every level, including a Calder Cup championship with Charlotte the last time it was awarded in 2019. We've heard all of his quotes post game, but kind of get into what's he like behind the scenes that we might not get to see that separate him from the pack of your typical coaches.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really hard worker. I think, pays attention to detail, is focused on the present moment. I think all the guys in the locker room have a lot of respect for him, and, he has a lot of respect for the players too. So I think it's been a good fit. The team listened to him well, and I think, we've competed hard as a group. And I think, what he said on the first day was just that it's not coaches versus players or players versus coaches. We're all one unit. And I think we've stuck to that all year, and you can't really ask for much more than that.
Now, I have one question here about Andrew Poturalski. Now, he's captain of this team. He has won the Calder Cup. Have you guys been kind of looking towards him for advice, or what has he been doing to help make sure that he gets to go back-to-back here?
Funny, he just walked right by me as you asked the question. So I think he's got a big smile on his face. But I think we've leaned on him a lot. I think, all our veterans know what it takes in the playoffs. And, he was very successful on that run with Charlotte. But I think he understands, and he's relayed to us that every team's unique and every situation's different. So I think we're using that success he's had before and get some of those lessons, but also understanding kind of this is our own time. And this is Chicago Wolves team, not the Charlotte Checkers team.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna come at you with a bit of a lightning round here. Just a couple of quick little fun questions. Do you have a favorite goal that you scored during the season?
I think my first NHL goal, I'd probably have to say that. It was pretty cool for my family, for them to be there, so that was special.
Who is the best seatmate on your team on the bus?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll go with Ryan Suzuki. I like sitting with him. Pretty relaxed guy, pretty funny, good music. So I'll go with him.
Do you have a favorite restaurant in Rosemont?
I like we went to EJ's place for a team dinner a couple nights ago in Skokie, so I like that one. I think I'll go with that one.
What about music to play on game day? Do you guys have like a team DJ in the locker room?
Yeah, Potsy is usually the DJ. Fitzy, Kevin Fitzgerald steps in sometimes. Both do a solid job. Me and Fitzy share a lot of the same tastes, so I like his on practice days, and then Potsy on game days. He gets the boys ready.
What kind of music is Potsy and Fitzy running?
Fitzy's got a lot of Zach Bryan, kind of Americana music that I like. Potsy's got a bit more of the rap before the games, some EDM, things like that.
Very well. I got to turn back to hockey. What's your favorite thing about playing this beautiful game?
Oh man, I think getting close to a team is kind of the special thing. Going through kind of the grit and the grind with your teammates and kind of forging special relationships. I think, you don't get to play the game forever, but you get to be friends with a lot of these guys forever. So that's pretty special.
What's your favorite moment of these playoffs been so far this season?
I'd have to say kind of winning game 6. I think when Lod scored that first goal, our bench erupted. Maybe that's a little bit of recency bias, but those his goal and Potsy's goal there, I think that was the most excited I've seen the guys all year. So I go with that.
I know some of the boys are big fans of crumble cookies. Do you have a personal favorite?
No, I'm not a crumble guy. Me and Gusty, we got our own dessert thing going. So I know all of them love it. I haven't really been invited in the crumble crew. So I'm kind of an outsider as far as that goes.
Okay, last question for you here. What movie do you quote the most often, and what is your favorite quote to use?
Definitely Miracle. Miracle on Ice movie. That's just, I think, every hockey player. But I'd say my favorite quote, the quote I like to use the most, would be "Legs feed the wolf."
It's very fitting for this team.
Yes.
Well, all right, Jack, I gotta say it was a pleasure having you on here. I think we all enjoyed having a chat with you, and from the team here at the Holy GrAHL, we wish you the best of luck and your chase for the Calder Cup.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, guys.
Yep. Take care, Jack.
Bye.
All right, so now that we have talked to all of our very special guests, again, major thank you to the Springfield Thunderbirds and the Chicago Wolves for making their players available to us. It was kind of a scramble to put it all together, but these teams came through. These players made some time in their very busy schedule. So once again, we want to thank the reps from those teams for helping us get this availability done for us. So now that that's out of the way, guys, we got to talk about our oof of the week. Again, this one's a little lighthearted, but I first want to thank the Golden Standard for AHL coverage, Patrick Williams, for this. But if you want to get an idea of how long it's been since Springfield last hosted a Calder Cup final, take a look at this here. So when Springfield last hosted the Calder Cup Finals on May 24th, 1991, their head coach, Drew Bannister, was an OHL rookie with Sault Ste. Marie. Assistant coach Daniel Kachuk was 10 years old, and assistant Stu Bickle was only 4. James Neal was 3, and their captain Tommy Cross was 1 year old. Now they're all playing for the Calder Cup Finals.
I wasn't even born yet.
The youngest player out of both of these teams was born in 2002. if that means anything to you.
Yeah, it means that I'm old.
Quiet. Miss mid-90s here. I was I'm not even doing math right now. I'm a reporter, not a mathematician. But that is my oof of the week. But luckily, it's not an oof any longer, because here in just a few days, they will be hosting a Calder Cup Finals on their own ice, making that oof irrelevant, which I'm sure their fans will highly appreciate. But let's go ahead and move on to our swipe left or swipe right segment, the time where my lovely co-hosts here are going to give you our hot takes. Now, Michael, I'm not sure if you listened to the episode a couple weeks ago, but we've given you, for that amazing prediction of that Milwaukee-Chicago game, we've given you 2 super swipes for the month of June. So use them wisely, but have a good time with them. The rest of us.
Sorry, Andrew, for having to do that to you, but
Oh, I mean, it is what it is.
But the rest of us have 1 super swipe. And you know the drill. If we like the take, we're going to swipe right on it. If we don't, we're going to swipe left. And then, of course, if we really like it, it's going to get a super swipe. Just hot takes around the league, around the world of hockey. Andrew, if you're ready, you're the A. Let's go.
Yeah. So I've tried to stay away from beat bias, but y'all forced my hand with the predictions. So the hottest take is that I need this series to at least just 6 games. This series is going 6 games. It's not my hottest take, but it's the one that I need to happen the most, because at game 6 and 7, I would be in Allstate Arena. We'd make that happen, and I could see the Holy Grail with my own eyes for the very first time. Even if it's being awarded to the other team, I need it to at least go 6 games. I can't. If this thing ends in Springfield, I will be heartbroken. But this is going 6. I'm manifesting my hottest take. It is going 6 games.
So I predicted that this game would be Chicago in 6. While I'm in love with that idea, I could see it going a lot of different ways. And of course, my predictions I know aren't always right, or they're barely ever right. So I won't give you the super swipe, but I'll definitely give you the like there.
I'll take it.
I'll swipe right, even though I predicted 5. I can see this going. I can see this going 6. I can see this going 7. The only thing I wouldn't see it is 4. So I'll give it a swipe right.
Yeah, I'll swipe right on it as well. I mean, I really don't see this series being a short one, just because I think both teams are so strong, mentally and resilient. Resiliency on both sides has been a huge factor as to how both teams have gotten here. Truly. So I see it at least go. I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be Springfield that goes and gets the Calder Cup there. But I do think it's going to end up coming back to Chicago for a 6th or 7th game. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's 7, to be honest. I think that would be a ton of fun and, great for the league here, too, to get such a meaningful game, this late in the summer here for sure.
All right, Corey, what about your take?
Well, my take's... I know last time when we were on here, we were talking about Springfield and Laval, and I was talking about goaltending and that Caden Primo would be the difference, which he was. It was, probably the reason why that game went 7. I'm going with goaltenders again this week, and I think that Springfield is going to start Charlie Lindgren and stick with Charlie Lindgren for the entire series. I don't think they're going to rotate goaltenders right now. I mean, Lindgren's coming off a shutout. I think it would take something very drastic for them to go to Joel Hofer. And, it's a recency bias type of thing, because Hofer was in net for the Game 6 loss. And while it's not always on the goaltenders here, you got to go with a hot hand eventually. And, in the AHL, you got to rely on both your goaltenders. That's true. But I think this is the time where if you're going to push one guy, it's for the Calder Cup.
I was gonna right swipe on it because you're like, oh, Charlie Lindgren starting game one. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think that kind of seems like the no-brainer. You know, he's the veteran. He's been around the league for a while. He's been playing the better hockey of late. But then when you say, well, they're just going to ride him for the whole series, I can't get on board with that. 10 games or 10 days, 7 games, that's you got to keep your boys fresh, you know? I think if he comes out in game 1 and steals the show, maybe put him in for game 2, see how he's going, but I think for game 3, you got to put Hofer in and in front of the home crowd maybe. I don't see a situation in which one goalie takes all the starts in this series. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to swipe left on it.
No, and I'll definitely swipe right on it because I think that once you kind of get your goaltender good and going, I think I can see him going. And I say that because Lindgren has the AHL experience. He has the playoff experience as well. And I think that that's a huge kind of factor is Lindgren's been around the league for what, 6 years plus now? So I think that's going to be a big determining factor. But, you know, if he gets off to a good start in game 1 and possibly even game 2, if I'm a coach, I'm going to keep him in, right? I don't want, if this guy's on a roll, if this guy's hot, he's going to stay hot. And I'm going to do what I can to keep him hot. And I think that if he was playing good, totally. And I'll swipe right on it.
I'm going to swipe right. I mean, yes, Andrew's point about goaltender staying fresh and how having that option to switch is a thing that teams should capitalize on. However, I think Lindgren's, again, been on a roll, and you don't really want to mess with something that's been working, especially in net, because goalies are voodoo. I think that as long as he's comfortable, as long as they're comfortable, he's going to get all the starts for the Springfield Thunderbirds.
All right, Michael, how about your take this week?
All right, my take is also a goalie take. I don't think there's going to be a single shutout this series. I believe that both teams are very capable, and there won't be a game where the offenses will go missing per se. Maybe they won't be able to overcome the other team, but I think for every game of the series, both teams are capable of scoring, and thus, no matter how good the goalies are, there won't be a shutout in this Calder Cup final.
Yeah, I'd swipe right on that. I mean, you know, that's, in my opinion, I think you're right. I think that these are two offensive juggernauts. You know, with, as we've been saying all show long, you know, deep lineups that, you know, have all come through in every corner here so far in this series. And I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. I mean, you know, we have seen goaltenders pitch shutouts. You know, the Thunderbirds were able to do it in game 7 there. You know, and there was some heroics there. I mean, I flash back to the Charlie Lindgren right-hand glove save in the third period on Danik Martel that was, you know, really a difference maker in that game. But I really think these are two teams that, you know, you can only hope to contain them. And it's really going to be a matter of who contains each other for the, you know, long enough in the series. You're going to see a lot of 1-goal games. I wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, 5-4 final and overtime, something like that, you know, between these two teams, just because there's a lot of, you know, just excellence offensively on both sides. That's their strengths.
I'm gonna swipe left on this. I like all 4 goalies right now. I know Hofer hasn't been great, but he scored a goalie goal, so I like him. I think Lindgren's playing his best right now, and you saw Lyon and Kochekov get 1 shutout each in the last series. And these guys on Chicago, I know, and it's probably the same over there in Springfield. Alex Lyon had the net all playoffs long. Then Kochekov got sent down from Carolina, and then the moment Lyon sat for 1 game, he responded with a shutout. And then Kochekov had the chance to close the series out, shutout. I think these guys, they push each other into an even greater level of play that they've already been at. I'm not saying they'll get it. I'm saying maybe Lindgren comes out and he's fired up in front of the home crowd and just is unreal. I can't commit to it. These goalies are too good. I know that both teams are too good, but I can't do it. I got to swipe left on it.
And I'm going to have to swipe left on it as well. If I hadn't have watched the last series between Chicago and Stockton, totally, I would have been on the same boat, because I looked at the last series and I said, these two guys, like, Stockton has people to score, Chicago has people to score, right? But now looking at it again, where I don't want to say it's the similar kind of role, similar kind of game, but for me, I think that the powers to be in net are real good. And I think that they're going to rely on that. And that's why I'm going to have to swipe left.
Last but most certainly not least, Zach, hit us with yours.
So I don't know if any of you guys even knew this, because I didn't until Deana provided me with some wonderful research. Did you know that the players don't necessarily get a scheduled day with the Calder Cup? So the Calder Cup is awarded to the team and the players can request a loan, but there isn't an automatic event like the Stanley Cup. So I was always misguided for years, thinking that they have a day with the cup, they can take it back and do whatever, but they have to actually request that, which is so strange to me. So I'll keep it simple. I think that automatically each player should get a turn with the Calder Cup.
Yeah, I'm super swiping that. Are you kidding me? How do they not have that?
No one ever thought of it, which is amazing to me.
I mean, same boat. Like I'll also use one of my super swipes on it. I mean, it might be the biggest trophy that one of these players ever wins, and you don't get a guaranteed day with it. I think that's a little bit. I think that's absurd, and I feel that it should be the same in the AHL as it is in the NHL. Every player should get their day with the cup.
Oh yeah, I'd super swipe that as well, just because I think back to a lot of the old Hershey squads that won the Calder Cups, last decade type of thing, and there was a lot of guys there that this was their biggest pursuit for the cup. I mean, I even think back to their team the last couple of years with Matt Molson. It was he wanted to win that Calder Cup, and those guys in those old teams, this was what they were going for, and the fact that's not guaranteed, absolutely that should be guaranteed for sure.
Feel the love.
There you go, Zach. I can't remember. I think there's been maybe one other time where everybody just took the sweep of the super swipes, but I think you're the second one to ever do that. So congrats.
Oh.
Nice pick there. So, all right, we're going to go through the scoring races real quick here. Looking at total points so far in these playoffs, Chicago has 3 of the top 6. First place, Josh Levo. Third, Jack Drury. 4th, Stefan Nation. And 6th, Andrew Poturalski. But Will Bitten there in second place and with points. And then Danik Martel in 5th from Laval. Looking at total goals, surprise, surprise, Chicago is number 1 there too, with Josh Levo with 11 goals. Danik Martel from Laval, second place with 9. Arttu Ruotsalainen from Rochester still hanging out in 3rd place with 8 goals. Will Bitten with 7 in 4th place. And then 5th, our guest here today, Jack Drury with 7. Looking real quick at the goaltenders, what I want to look at is save percentage. Now, Matt Murray and his 2 total games played with the Texas Stars is in first place with a 9.52, but Joe Hoffer in 8 games with a 9.47 in second place, and then Pyotr Kochekov from Chicago in 3 games has a 9.41. Any surprises? Any thoughts?
Matt Murray still being there. I mean, I get it. He only played 2 games, and he unfortunately, it wasn't any fault of his, but he lost them both. And I guess that's the key to being the goalie at the top of the stat sheet. Just don't play any more games.
Not the first time we've made that reference all season.
Isn't that what Scott Perunovich did? He just played like a handful of games, led the league, and then just left for months.
He was on the top of the scoring race for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He really was.
Honestly, I'm a little more surprised there's not more Springfield players in the, tops towards the top of the league and scoring there. But their scoring has been so balanced out. I remember there was a period of time I think it was at least through their first round and into the Charlotte series, where there was no Springfield player in the top 10 of scoring at that point. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, like these guys, scored 7 goals over Wilkes-Barre and, had steamrolled those couple of series, had a lot of variety in scoring. But it was so much variety that they really didn't have any representation in there as a result. So I'm a little surprised, but also kind of not surprised in the same way that, you got a player like Will Bitten who had a couple of huge games with a tons of points in the conference final there to, propel him up there. But, it seems like when one player stops scoring, like Sam Manas didn't score as much in the conference finals. But when, if he's not there, other guys are picking him up and, adding their names to the score sheet too. I mean, you think of like the Dakota Joshuas and, such a great variety of players there to really make that stat a reality. It's more of a team effort than one individual, I think, for sure.
For sure. All right, well, that's all we got for coverage, but I do have a bonus round for y'all, and it has to do with our guest earlier today, Jack Drury. So I kind of want to go a little on the family tree branch here and go to his father, Ted. And they've actually had quite a lot of similarities in their hockey careers. They both went to Harvard. They both played on the U.S. national team. They were both drafted 42nd in their draft. And they both played for the Chicago Wolves. Now, in 2001, that's when Father Ted was a member of the Wolves. He also played one game in the NHL that year. In 2001. Deana already won this round, but I'm going to give a shot to the other 3 guys. Who was that team he played for?
Isn't it? Wait, hold on. I think it was the Blue Jackets, wasn't it?
It might have been. I'll give the other guys a chance to guess, though.
Maybe.
I'm kind of thinking that because I know the Blue Jackets kind of didn't have a great team. But I'll mix it up and I'll go the Rangers.
The expansion rules sucked then, just saying.
Say that like
they didn't get the Vegas ruling then.
No.
I don't know. Dina's reaction to me was too much. I don't think it can't possibly be anybody other than Columbus, honestly. I just saw her
Y'all,
over there.
I'm more than just Columbus. I was a huge fan of Tampa Bay before Columbus even was a blink in the city's eye.
Yep. Well, I guess you would all be correct there because it was the Columbus Blue Jackets. Ted had his probably actual cup of coffee with the expansion Blue Jackets playing a single game and going -3. And we hope from that point, maybe his and Jack's careers maybe divert a little bit and they don't follow exactly the same path. But Ted, did put in an impressive 414 NHL games. So, I think Jack would be okay with that as well. Anyway, I don't really know who to deem the winner of that one because I think you all got it. But I guess we'll give it to Deana. She got it.
Oh, boy.
Exactly.
I win because I literally have 0 poker face. So if you ever want to beat me in a game, or if you ever want an easy win on someone in a game of cards, do me because I get all excited whenever I know the answer to something. Or if, I give everything away. But guys, I just have one last question for you. Who's going to be the MVP of the postseason?
Oh my God.
I have this whole thing against jinxing, but I will say that when you show up on the pod, you generally play really well. So I'll give it, it's a wide net, but I'll give it to any one of those 3 guys there that showed up on this episode. I guess that disqualifies Potsy, but even if you made a cameo, and you know what? I'll include Potsy in that. It's 2 and 2. Those will be my picks. And
Josh Levo or Charlie Lindgren?
I like it.
I said Chicago to win, and it'll be Drury.
I'll go the other way then. I'm going to go with Matthew Peca. I think that he's been so outstanding, coming through clutch. Had that power play goal in Game 7 that opened the scoring, was really the difference maker. I'm going to go with Peca.
I'm going to go with the player currently sitting second in overall points in the postseason with Will Bitten. But guys, that's it for our episode. Calder Cup Finals kickoff here at the Holy GrAHL. And if you like us, please subscribe, like, share, rate this podcast, tell all your friends, and of course, give us a follow on Twitter at the Holy GrAHL. But if you want to just kind of talk to us individually, you can find us all on Twitter as well. I'm over at FPHAHL.
You can find me at FPH Wolves, where I'll be live tweeting and just kind of general social mediaing for the Wolves. Or if not playoff hockey is your thing, you can find me at FPH Griffins.
You can find me over at CSWA11. I post highlights for the Thunderbirds as they're going on here, as well as at HBH Nation blog for all things Hershey Bears.
And I'm at FPH Canucks. Pretty quiet for me so far, and won't jump in unless there's something that really happens this offseason. Such is the life of an eliminated team.
And I'm FPH Marlies.
You can also check out all of the game recaps and any updates on your favorite teams at fieldpasshockey.com. And be sure to check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts on our Field Pass Hockey Network, Inside the SPHL with James Hayes, the 3 Periods podcast with Matthew Harding. If you want to keep on with the AHL, Syracuse Speaks with Alexandra Ackerman, which is, of course, a Syracuse Crunch-centric podcast. We have Monsters Musings with Jay Forrester and myself, although there's going to be some changes coming there. As you know, Jeremy Paul, one of our co-hosts here, is taking over the Monsters beat for me. So a little bit news in the works on that. But behalf of all of us here at the Holy GrAHL, we hope you have an amazing week. Enjoy that Calder Cup final hockey, and we'll chat next time. Bye.
Bye.
This has been the Holy GrAHL podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.